Welcome back. Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia has announced that the Thika Highway will have a dedicated lane for public service vehicles. This is in line with the government's plan for a bus rapid transit system to ease traffic flow on major roads in the city. Thereafter, the CS spoke to our Sophia Wanuna on these and other critical issues in the Transport Ministry. Here is part of that interview.
Thank you very much, CS, for making time for us. So today we saw the creation of these dedicated lanes on the Thika Highway for special buses. Does this mean also matatus just use that one lane now on Thika Highway?
Thanks, Sophie. This is the first step of creating what we call the bus rapid transit system, whereby we shall be having dedicated lanes on certain corridors, and whereby we have high-capacity buses which can now move on express basis without having to stop. That way, it creates a lot of room in terms of making sure we don't have congestion on our major corridors. And so it's called the BRT because it's what it is, Bus Rapid Transit System. And thereafter, we can have what they call the Mass Rapid Transit System, when we also include the railways and so forth.
Right. So to get it right, just for these special buses which are yet to come into the market and into our roads, or matatus as well will use these particular lanes?
The ultimate objective is to have about 950 buses carrying about 100 passengers per bus. And this is basically for Nairobi alone, because Nairobi is the place with the biggest problem in terms of congestion. So initially, we want to do a pilot, starting with Thika Highway, whereby we shall deploy the buses from NYS, which, as you know, there are about 35 buses so far committed. We're also getting more buses from the private sector. We have engaged the Matatu Owners Association to bring about 50 more buses. We are also getting, as government, 50 more buses. So in a very short time, which is about maybe a month or two, there will be about 150 buses on those special lanes. And so we don't want to bring every PSV on that lane, otherwise it will defeat the whole purpose. So this special lane will be for those high-capacity buses, but also allow emergencies like ambulances, fire agents, and so forth. So initially it will be dedicated for those three sort of groups. Because
some are celebrating already online, thinking the nuisance of matatus stopping everywhere, being all over, cutting in and out of lanes, and the kind of madness usually we'll witness on the roads would end. So saying that this is just for the special buses, but also NYS bus is already facing a lot of heat and conflict between the matatu owners and them. So how is this going to be implemented if already the NYS buses, as it is, are not welcome?
Well, I think let me clarify, Sophie. This program, it is not exclusive to just having the new buses. What you want is to have the matatu owners themselves buy the same buses themselves. And so it's not exclusive to NYS. It's not exclusive to the 50 buses the government will be buying. We want the operators of the matatus to shift from the 14-seater and start buying these big buses. Interestingly, as we are talking, we have 10 of those big buses already operating in Nairobi. So on Monday, we have a meeting with the Matatu Owners Association. We want to help them buy these buses, facilitate the financing, and so they can shift away from the old 14-seater, which, as you know, are very old. They are having a lot of problems. They carry only 14 people, and move to the 100-seater, which can carry now more people and reduce the congestion on our roads. So it is transformation which the matatu people must own up and adopt.
And they're accusing the government of engaging in competition with a business that's already thriving or suffering even where they are now, and then the government is coming in to take away their business.
The government has a duty, a very fundamental duty, to make sure that Mwananchi does not get exploited. Currently, you find matatus are charging up to 100 bob from, say, Githurai to Nairobi, to the city. the NYS have come in, they'll be charging as low as 20 bob. But what you want the matatus owners to do is to make sure they charge a fair and affordable fee for the passengers. And we believe, for example, from Githurai to the city, is about 40 bob, not more than that. So it's not about exploitation of the Mwananchi. Or, competition will always be there, but they must make sure they adopt a system which is not exploitative to the Mwananchi.
And yet, finally on this one, decongesting the city, which is what this move is geared to, cannot be resolved by this move alone. To ban PSVs from the CBD has not worked. Even when the Nairobi governor announced, the same had to be suspended because of the heat and the backlash that he received. 90% of the vehicles we are seeing are personal, private vehicles. So what's the bigger picture in actually decongesting Nairobi?
If you look at the number of vehicles we have in this country, per capita, it's very high. We have 3.2 million vehicles with a population of about just over 40 million. That's a very high number. We have very small vehicles. Families of 4 have got 4 vehicles. That is what we don't want. We want a very modern transport system whereby these buses, which are used in these big cities globally, even Tanzania, you can get now families who are driving 4 vehicles jumping into this bus. For example, where we are starting this process at Kasarani, we are going to create a very big parking. So if you live that side, you go and park your vehicle with your family, and you jump into this bus, which is very civilized, very express. It's going to take a fraction of the time which you normally take with your vehicle. So there's no reason of having all these small vehicles, clogging up the city. Shift from those small vehicles. All of us, basically, with no exception. You go to Europe, you find ministers, everybody, prime minister, they get into the bus. That's what we want. Change of mindset and culture.
So Thika Road is a starting point. As a pilot, you've said. Where next?
We have identified about 6 corridors. The first one is Thika Road because infrastructure is ready. But then we have Rangata Road, which is another big problem. We have Gong Road, we have Oyaki Way, we have Jogoo Road, and even the one which we just established at Outer Ring Road. That connection, also we want to introduce the same concept. So eventually the entire city will be covered.
Okay, let's move to air transport. And it appeared at some point a lot of progress had been made with those direct flights from the US to Kenya and vice versa, even counting down perhaps the first one. But the debacle the other day at the airport, JKIA with Miguna arriving, appears, and we're getting reports that there's a review of the same, that the Americans are concerned with what was witnessed and would not want that kind of a scenario. How concerned are they?
Well, let me say, ironically, it was not supposed to give us any kudos, but it has helped us in terms of showing that we are very serious in terms of enhancing the security of our airport. If we had allowed Miguna to come through the airport just because he made a lot of noise, that could have been disastrous in terms of direct flights. But now we said, as per international conventions, you cannot come with one document which was stamped elsewhere and expect to be allowed in with a different document. If that had happened, I can tell you these direct flights could have been cancelled forever.
But the reports
so
we're getting
in our favor.
So the reports that we're getting that it's under review and because this impacted negatively on talks are not true?
Certainly not true. In fact, we had gone very far. That's why you found even Kenya Airways have been selling tickets for the flight in October. They continue to sell tickets. On the first day, we had about 65 tickets, sold out in one day. So this one, we're just waiting for what we call the technical traffic rights. So the KQ can confirm what kind of aircraft they'll be flying to the US, which in this case will be Dreamliner 787. So the process is complete. And this, what happened at the airport, has no adverse impact whatsoever. And I'm telling you, it has actually strengthened our position.
All right. right. From air, let's go to rail now. Cargo transport on SGR now ongoing. The last time I spoke to you, I remember you're very optimistic about great uptake it would see. However, analysts and reports we've been reading, it has not seen that. Very slow uptake. The numbers you hoped to get are not coming through. The money which you're talking about when helping to repay the loans, despite incentives that have been given, are not working. So what's going on?
They're not working.
It appears they're not.
Let me correct that. Let me correct that. Because we are ahead of schedule, ahead of target. We started the freight service in January this year with one train, if you remember. The targets we had were to have 3 trains, freight, by end of March, 6 trains by end of June, 12 trains by end of December, and 18 trains by end of December next year. By end of March, which is last week, we had 4 trains going either way. 4 coming.
Full capacity?
Full capacity, carrying on average about 110 containers, which is what's supposed to carry every train. Full capacity. And so we are very confident that come end of June, we shall have the 6 trains. By having 6 trains, you break even in terms of your income and expenses. By December, when you have 12 trains, we shall pay expenses and be left with a lot of money to pay the loans, which are not payable anyway until 2020. By the time we hit December next year, doing 18 trains, there will be a lot of excess cash reserves to be able to pay for the loan. And so we are really ahead of target. Even passengers, you know, we started with 1 train in May last year. Now there are 2 trains. Easter was full. And so this concept of the train is actually been accepted 100%.
So is it now mandatory for freight from Mombasa to Nairobi to come via the train and no more trackers in terms of the containers we see on our roads with the trucks?
Well, let me tell you, Mombasa receives about 28 million tons of cargo. By the time we hit the maximum capacity of this train, which, like I said, is about 18 trains every day, we shall be doing about 14 million tons, which is 50% of the total coming through Mombasa. So there will still be 50%, 14 million tons, to come by road. Hence the debate about even doing the Mombasa-Nairobi Express Highway. So there will still be business for everybody. What you do not want is the entrenching of cartels, which have raided our CFSs, and they have prevented cargo coming by train. That is what we dismantled and said, if cargo is coming unnominated, that cargo should go through the ICD.
You mentioned cartels. Is it part of what led to the shake-up at KPA?
Cartels, but it was a wider scheme, because what we shook up at KPA were workers. But if you look at the entire business environment, we had those cartels, you know, in the SCFSs, which had to be dismantled. And that now is working very well. Interestingly, I had one company, you saw it, they advertised in the papers, called Bolloré, a French company. They have committed 1 train themselves, their own business, 1 train every day. That shows you the kind of extent of the interest we have. Because people can see it's taking half the time, half the cost. And so it's only somebody who will be irrational who cannot adopt the train as a mode of transport.
Yes. Thank you so much, CS.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure. All the best.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Asante.